Well, let's get to the elephant in the room. The way that you two were looking at that young slut Will Saddleberg last week. I don't appreciate it, and I won't stand for it.
It's okay. You know we love you, Daddy.
Yeah, yeah. I too have questionable ways of describing that. Wait, so you're a dad now, Justin? Congratulations.
I am a dad. Yes. We are into week 2 of the life of Bella. The beautiful age has begun. Mm-hmm. And yeah, she's adorable. She's very, very cute and very healthy, which is really the most important part. But we're in what is called the cluster feeding portion of child rearing.
So you and Ashley both have to feed her, nipple-wise?
Well, if I lay her on my chest, she'll go for it just to see, she'll just try to bang on the she'll try to bang on the wall.
That's my motto.
Exactly. No, and that is hers as well. No, she just eats a lot. So she is right now in a big growth spurt phase, but that essentially means she just lives to sleep, eat, poop, sleep. That's it.
She's living the dream.
Yeah, she is. So we wake her up so we can feed her. And then she's like, cool. All right. Well, I'm going back to sleep, y'all. I'll see you in about 2.5 hours. And that's that. That is the life of Bella currently.
Justin, I've got a question for you as a new father.
Yeah.
Are you experiencing like new weird levels of confidence? Because I feel like all the dads I know are way more take it or leave it on all other human beings. Like once they have kids, they're like, I've got the mate sorted and I can make my own people, so fuck off if I don't like you. And I'm very jealous.
Oh, well, I don't know. I don't know if I was necessarily deficient in that before, but now I don't know. Maybe I guess I would have to test that against being outside. I really haven't left my house. That's the big.
A week.
Yeah. And it appears as if the Loch Ness Monster has snagged Heaton's internet. Are we back, Heats?
I'm back. Apologies.
No problem. So yeah, I don't know. To answer your question, I have not gotten into situations where I am making moral judgments on people, although I don't suspect that things will be particularly different. What I do believe will happen is that, like all internet creators who have kids, it's a ticking clock for from now until like 5 to 10 years from now, when I'm just gonna become a crank. And no one really knows what kind of crank I am. I could be flips out and starts replying the president as if he listens to me on Twitter and scream my personal grievances. I could be Bible quote every day guy. There's no telling where I'm going to go. But the law of internet personality says I'm going to get weird and I'm going to justify that weird turn based on the fact that I have a child.
It's adorable that you don't think that you're currently a crank.
Agreed. Well put, Jen.
I would say a more defined crank, a more partisan crank, maybe. Usually, that's the thing. I think it's harder for people to stay unpartisan or just the internet troll that I am. And that's really my brand. It's just like, why only pick on one side when you could pick on all of them? But yeah, normally you wind up settling into one thing or another because you find elections more serious. And I feel like that would be the turn that would happen to me, is I think I would eventually be, I don't know. Well, if other internet personalities are a guide, maybe I won't. Maybe I'm an iconoclast. Maybe I break the mold.
So like you're going to be that person that's screaming, won't somebody please think of the children? Is that where you think you're headed?
No, that's always the undercurrent. So our generation made fun of that person, right? The like, please think of the kids. And when we were growing up, we were like, yeah, we are kids. Who cares? Whatever. Like, but then the layer that built on top of that was, now I really, really, really take blank seriously, right? Religion, politics.
This is where I see you going, just because Justin, you've always had a cool, like, kind of rebellious high schooler with a skateboard devil may care attitude.
Yeah.
And I think that's going out the fucking window now.
I think
the the rubber band's going to go back the other way, where you're like, actually, like, pot does make them lazy. We should make it illegal, like that.
Yeah.
Level. Like, where you're going to become trad dad.
Yeah, or I'm like, oh, well, we should be doing public funding for Prince Albert piercings in elementary schools because like we really need to shake up the status quo and remove the authoritarian influence of religion on our children. I think that there's a lot of ways. If we were going to open up the online betting odds on this, I feel like that there's pretty even action all around the board. But I do think that I will. I mean, again, the law of internet personality says I'm going to settle on one. It's going to be a Plinko game, though.
It'll be fun for us to make fun of you.
Yeah.
No matter which way this goes.
For now, though, it is just a little bit of sleep deprivation. I don't know how much sleep I am actually losing. The one thing that I have lost, and you guys will be just thrilled to hear this, is that I have been cast out of the Mount Olympus that was morning person.
Oh.
Nice. Good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome to our
Yeah.
side.
I'm glad to hear that. You're not like waking up at 4:30, like banging pots and pans around, then smiling when it wakes people up because it's cute that they're sleeping in. Okay, good.
Have you become a nap person?
Not yet, although I don't know if it's totally out of the question. I do wake up at 4:30 in the morning. The problem is I have to feed a baby and then try to get it back to sleep, and then I wind up going back to sleep after that. So I have been sleeping until, like, by the time the baby gets her last feed overnight, it's usually anywhere between like 5 and 6:30, something like that. And then I'll sleep another like hour and a half. So I'm waking up at like 9, 10 o'clock, like a fucking plebeian.
Wow.
Like a podcaster.
Yeah.
Like a proper podcaster.
I've been sleeping really poorly the last week and a half. Can I blame Bella for that? Is this
You
like
can.
sympathy sleep issues that I'm developing?
By the way, Heaton, I listened to your episode from the DNC. Is everything okay? Like, it was like the last like 15 minutes were like a cry for help of you just writing help me on the wall.
I'm feeling a lot better. Yeah, no, so for listeners in relation to that, just imagine that for 10 years of your life, your daily salary, dating options, and friendship groups change on a daily basis depending on what your opinions are. And you're in the middle and everybody hates you. That's kind of how I've felt the last 10, 15 years. And so I was starting to get the email pushback from the DNC of Tim Walz is a great guy. You're being awful by not heralding him up as, the...
Oh, that's where that came from. It wasn't
mankind.
anything that happened at the DNC. It was emails from the Walls episode.
The DNC was lovely. Yeah, I had a good time there. No, but it was what's predictable, which is people going, you're carrying water for the Democrats because you deep down want to be friends with them. You can't blah, blah, blah. And then flip side, you're just a Republican, pretending to be an independent. And I love it when both sides hate me for the same reason. It's a really fun feeling. So fortunately, that I'm bracing myself. I'm girding myself. I know that this is going to get more and more intense as we get towards the election date, and I'm not looking forward to it.
You got to start looking at those emails as compliments.
Yeah, you're right. Well, and the other thing too is like
because I got a really nasty one about an episode. We'll plug it at the end of the show. But Jen was on PX3 yesterday, and we had similar thoughts on some of the vibes of the DNC, and we talked about it. And boy, did I get just a real riot act read to me about how everything we said had a very easy explanation. We were being too harsh. And by the way, I live in southern Missouri, and there aren't any Trump signs, so you should cover that. But
are they feeling the joy, and we popped their joy bubble? Is that
look,
what happened?
I just think those are compliments. Those are always compliments. Whenever somebody sits down and writes you an email, whether or not they realize it, they are complimenting you.
Yeah, and I also need to remember that the majority of people that listen to this show and that listen to my show like us, like me, like what we're doing, and that's the majority. And then the other bit is I don't want to do this job if I'm afraid of shit. So I think I just need to barrel into it, and if it burns down, go back to being a tour guide. But
just stop reading the emails.
Yeah.
Mental health wise, I'm doing a lot better by just staying out of my emails. Because I read one yesterday and it screwed with my day. And it's like, this is what the person wrote to me for. Like, they tried to ruin my day. I cannot let this happen. So just
Jen, I sent
emails.
Jen an email from this show that we didn't read, and she sent me an email back saying, "Stop sending me this shit." And I got it in the delivery room of my daughter.
Well, you also send them my personal email account, so that's where these bombs are not supposed to land. So that was a part of it too. I was like, oh, I'll go to my happy place. This is all about like volleyball and shit.
Well,
And
you
I have,
never
like,
tell me where the appropriate place for toxic emails are. Give me the information.
congressionaldish.com. That's the one
Okay.
I don't read. Send it all there.
From Austin, Texas, I'm Justin Robert Young. From Austin, Texas as well, but not in my house.
I'm Jen Briney.
And from Edinburgh, Scotland,
I'm Andrew Heaton.
and we're not wrong on this edition of the program. We're going to talk about AOC ripping Jill Stein, but not how you think. The death of paid live channels. It's not just cable itself. It is also the internet version of it, as well as your email. Heaton, how is Scotland treating you so far? You fled Chicago, the toddling town, to head on out to Edinburgh. Is it nice?
It's really lovely. It's good to be back. I've seen a bunch of friends already. I've been working out of the Royal Scots Club, as is my wont. Yesterday I spent the morning hanging out with 4 90-year-olds and a 70-year-old. Which is great.
What kind of equipment? Because I imagine it's just the spring coil that you pull apart.
But it's been good. It's been nice. I'm going to go on a little trip up northeast tomorrow and work on my very slowly moving travel book. Eventually, Bill Bryson will go to jail or die, and then I will try to fill that void. So I'm slowly piecing together this travel book. So it's a nice trip.
Nice. Jen, we will have you back in the house soon. We just need to have it be a little bit less of a hellscape.
Yeah,
I
Jen,
mean,
2 or 3 years
honestly-
from now, we'll both be welcome in the the young household. They'll
Back
be
in the
covered in crowns and Cheetos.
Well,
Yeah.
yesterday, I don't know if this is on the air or not, but Justin described the house or the baby as a piss and shit factory, and I just kind of
Yeah.
feel like I don't need to be around that factory, so it's okay being here in my own home.
No, you're
until
going to
that
love the
bellows.
factory. It's a good-looking factory.
I already
Look,
love the factory. Don't worry about that.
It's a
But
good-looking factory.
until she controls that.
Well, she
I'm
doesn't
here.
piss and shit on you. She just pisses and
Yes.
shits.
Yet.
I mean, you piss and shit, and we like you.
But I have it under control. But yes, I will be happy to come over when you guys are ready. But take your time. I mean, this is a crazy. You just had a baby a week ago. Keep everyone out of the house if you want to. Do what you want.
Let me know when it can talk. I like the things when they can talk. When they're just booting up, they're of no interest to me.
Yeah, that's like a year.
Yeah, the
So-
pupa stage, nah.
She does a thing now where when she's drinking milk, she makes hands as if she's a cartoon villain that has achieved ultimate power at the end of the second act. So she just is has all of her fingers going as her hands slowly rise up and up. It's amazing. In an Instagram story, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez criticized Green Party presidential candidate Jill Stein, calling her predatory for repeatedly running for president without significantly growing the Green Party at the grassroots level. Ocasio-Cortez highlighted Stein's focus on presidential elections while neglecting to build state and local level party infrastructure, which she views as ineffective leadership. Stein has been accused of being a spoiler in key battleground states during the 2016 election, where her vote totals exceeded Trump's margin of victory in several states. Ocasio-Cortez emphasized that her criticism is not against third parties in general, but against Stein's strategy, which she sees as insincere and unproductive. In response, Stein accused the Democrats of sabotaging third parties and defending her campaign's focus on critical issues like climate change and economic hardship. Jen, AOC got a point?
So I watched this thing with AOC, and I don't think she does. In fact, if you're going to criticize someone, it's probably good to be accurate, and she wasn't even accurate. So she's accusing Jill Stein of just running every 4 years for president, and like that's all that she does. That's bullshit, because Jill Stein was the presidential nominee in 2016 and now again in 2024 after they recruited her, because Cornel West was supposed to be the Greens candidate. Yeah. And so when he decided to leave the party,
he was too busy hugging Heaton to take up that mantle.
And I have to say, good call, Green Party, selecting somebody else. He's a delight, but
busy making love to Andrew Heaton in public to run for the Green Party nomination. And so they recruited Jill Stein. She wasn't even trying to do it, but they recruited her for 2024. But in 2020, she wasn't the nominee. Howie Hawkins was the nominee. And in 2020, Jill Stein, despite not being the nominee, was all over the country helping people on down ballots try and win their races. That we have pictures of her. We know that this was the case. Also, the Green Party has done a pretty damn good job of staying on the ballot, where a lot of third-party attempts only last for a decade or so before they peter out. But the Green Party seems to continue to grow. I mean, right now, they're eligible for 496 electoral votes if everything goes the way that they expect, which is pretty damn good ballot access. There's only three states that we know that they're going to be locked out of. And then when it comes to where they've been successful, like, they're absolutely running people at the local level. They have people on city councils, school boards, mayorships, and state level offices, because that's where they focus on the actual grassroots. And according to Jill Stein herself on her recent appearance on Rising, they've had 1,400 Green Party candidates elected in the last 15 or 20 years. And right now there are 140 Greens who are currently in office. So what AOC said just is factually inaccurate. And it's just it's icky coming from a Democrat too, because they've worked so hard this year trying to prevent the Greens from being on the ballot. Like, they're currently suing to get the Green Party kicked off the ballot in 4 states, Georgia, Wisconsin, Nevada, and Montana. And then if you look at, like, you know, this whole idea that the Greens aren't doing anything down ballot, well, today, a New York Times article came out that was talking about uncontested elections. And in 2022, the Democrats didn't field a candidate for half of all partisan offices, which is 3 times as many as Republicans. So if you're going to talk shit, at least make sure that your own party isn't guilty of the exact same thing that you're accusing the Greens of. And there's really no excuse for the Democrats. They have the money. They are the duopoly. So the fact that they're running or refusing to run candidates in so many instances, like, they have no excuse. The Greens have real financial issues, real name recognition issues. Like, partisan gerrymandering affects them even more than it would affect the Democrats and Republicans. And so for her to AOC to say that, it's pretty gross, and it makes me like her a lot less, honestly.
Well, Jen doesn't care about democracy, Heaton. Do you?
I hate that I'm going to stick up for AOC here. I don't like where we're winding up here, but yeah, I think she's got a point. Now, I agree with Jen completely on third parties are getting kicked by the duopoly, that the Democratic Party, allegedly the party of democracy, is trying to restrict the options available to voters by kicking them off the ballot. I agree with all of that stuff. I'm very much in favor of electoral reform, and I don't have any time for the idea that third-party candidates are spoiler candidates, blah, blah, blah. The whole Hillary Clinton thing where Jill Stein's a Russian asset is, I think, deeply caustic to national fiber. But we're not talking about the sort of, are they spoiler candidates, which is not what AOC was talking about. It seemed to me that she was talking about just what are the practical effects of the Green Party. And I think that AOC has a very good soapbox to stand on in that regard, because AOC is functionally a third-party candidate that went into the Democratic Party. She said on the record before that it's weird that her and Joe Biden are in the same political party in the United States. If they were in Europe, they wouldn't be. I think that that's a very accurate statement. But that she went and said it's going to be more effective for the Democratic Socialists of America, of which she's a member, and the Justice Democrats, of which she's a member, to become a group within the Democratic coalition and get elected than to be outside of it and do nothing. And while I very much appreciate the third-party position, I have to say I think AOC's been more effective than Jill Stein at getting things done. By virtue of getting elected, by virtue of holding office, she was able to put the Green New Deal on the national radar. I think that shifted the Overton window. and many elements of it were recycled into the Inflation Reduction Act.
According to Kamala Harris in the CNN interview that she did, it was the bulk of it.
Exactly. So I think that just from a practical standpoint, it seems to be much more effective to become a caucus within one of the two parties than to be on the outside. And I say that as a guy who hates the two parties, but it does seem to be a more effective way of getting things done. And I, having watched the libertarian movement for several years, I am wary of people being too cool for school and thus not getting their hands dirty and entering the process, or if people kind of overly playing moral purity. And for anybody else, or for most other people, I think I would dismiss this criticism. But for AOC, I think that she took a third-party position and went inside rather than outside, and has been effective in promulgating her ideas.
You know,
I mean, when you say AOC's ideas, because the Green New Deal was a Green Party idea. They invented it in 2010, and AOC just simply stole it and never gave them credit. But I am curious, like, when you say get things done, I can't think of anything she's got done. And like that power that she thought she'd have in the Democratic Party, they're not using it. Like, so what I'm specifically thinking of was the Fight for 15. The idea was that this squad that she's a part of would use the leverage that they have within the party to challenge Nancy Pelosi's speakership and therefore force their ideas. And they refuse to do that. And now the squad members are losing their elections right and left, and she's cozying up with Nancy Pelosi's positions. And I just don't see how she is more effective. I think instead of her changing the party, I think what we're witnessing is the party's changing her. And I think that might be some of the venom for the Green Party, because like the Green Party is actually sticking to their values, where I see AOC abandoning hers right and left. And so I see a little bit of bitter grapes here in her diatribe, because she really hasn't been effective in Congress, and she had to give up a lot of what she believes in to have this position.
Well, I think part of it is for AOC. She knows that she can't come out and say, I think Jill Stein is great. May she get as many votes as possible, because the people that are fans of hers and supporters of hers are Democrats. And it is written into the Democratic Constitution of history that Ralph Nader cost them the election in 2000 and Jill Stein cost them the election in 2016. That's why they lost. It wasn't because Al Gore. Yeah, it wasn't because Al Gore didn't run a good campaign. Yeah, it was because Jill Stein ran in 2016 that Hillary Clinton lost. So I think this was her trying to do a little bit of a bank shot, because she leads that Instagram by saying, I am a third party candidate. I'm a working families candidate when I run on the New York ballot. I accept their nomination in the same way that I accept the Democratic nomination. Now that's de rigueur in New York politics, which many people might not know. Like, that happens all the time. Yeah. But she's like, all right, well, the reason why I don't think that you should like Jill Stein isn't because I am a blanket hater of any third party. It's because of this reason, because she has not built the party. She has not made it something more than what it is. It is a vanity project for her to get her name mentioned once every 4 years.
Well, like I said, she launched an airball with this one, because everything she said about Jill Stein wasn't even true. It's like, if you're going to say this stuff, make sure what you say is true. And it just wasn't true. So it just it smelled bitter to me, as opposed to
entirely
factual.
possible. And I don't like that I'm in any way staking up for AOC, who's not one of my favorite people in Congress.
Really?
I know, right? Right. But I do think if you're a third party, there's really three ways that you can affect change, right? The first one is that you win enough votes to affect change. So like here in the UK where I'm staying, the Lib Dems and the S&P are big enough that they can be minor parties that can push legislation in a given way. That, for whatever reason, doesn't seem to be on the table in the United States at this time, perhaps due to ballot access, perhaps due to first past the post, all sorts of structural reasons. So that leaves the other two ways you can affect change. And one of those is enter the tent, like the DSA did. Rather than being the socialist party outside of America, they came in and became Democrats within the socialist coalition, or like the New Democrats, who I like very much, the New Liberals within the Democratic Party, or even some kind of free-floating thing like the Forward Party, where you're not precluding yourself from participating. But if you're not doing that, you do it by effecting change, basically by threatening to be a spoiler, where you go in and you take enough votes that the two parties have to pay attention to you. I think that that's what the Libertarian Party is now doing. I think previously they were kind of running an ideological, ceremonial election every 4 years, and now they're leaning towards Trump because they're trying to get him to have certain things that are put into his agenda that they'll accomplish by putting pressure on the two. With the Green Party, though, I don't see them as having any latitude because the Democrats despise them, and they're not gonna be able to float something that compels the Democrats to move in a particular direction. So I think in her case, yeah, I think she's probably more effective than Jill Stein in terms of getting things done, or at least I hear her statements far more. Maybe it's just a media catnip thing where she's just more she's more interesting to journalists, but she certainly commands a lot more attention than the Green Party.
Well, I mean, I've been trying to get attention and get onto other podcasts for 12 years. It's really out of my control. So it's like Jill Stein is doing every interview that's offered to her. I don't think that that's something that she can control. But I also think that she's aiming bigger based on the interviews that I've heard with her. Like, I think the idea of what Jill Stein and the Greens that she's working with are trying to do is to challenge the duopoly, like to get enough votes to stay on the ballot and then continue to grow their support election after election so that at some point the Democrats can't ignore them. Because as we saw at their own convention, this is not a party that wants to be or is even open to being changed from within. And so right now, I think they're freaking out a little bit. The Democrats are a little bit because the Muslim vote appears to be 50-50. It appears to be half of them are going to vote for Jill Stein and half of them are going to vote for Democrats.
Really?
And they're starting to panic a little bit, as they fucking should. Yeah, because they're not listening to people within their own base. And so the Greens are offering an alternative. And so, yeah, they probably won't win the presidency now. But instead of aiming to try and change, one of the parties in the duopoly to be like a little bit more green, the Greens are saying, no, we want to be a real alternative. And what they need is for people to vote for them to build that momentum. And so I like that they're aiming big. And, yeah, so far, when I look at what AOC is saying and the inaccuracy of it, I think she might be a little jealous of someone who is willing to stick to her principles and stay with a smaller party, but really stand for what she believes in, as opposed to what AOC is doing is capitulating to the leadership of the Democratic Party instead of really pushing for the Green New Deal. She doesn't even talk about it anymore. She's not pushing for Medicare at all. She got on the stage at the DNC and was saying, Kamal is fighting really hard for a ceasefire. We know that's bullshit. So she's decided to capitulate. That's her strategy, and whether or not you think that's more effective, that's a choice that she made. Jill Stein is making a different choice. And so for AOC to say those things about her, it just feels like someone who might be regretting the inauthenticity she has to project in order to make the decisions that she's made within the Democratic Party.
Jen, let me follow up with you there. I have noticed from just my glancing to the leftward side of our political dialogue, you certainly spend a lot more time listening and among that community. There does seem to be a divide of, is AOC being a smart operator or did AOC just sell out? And it sounds like you fall more on the sellout side.
I do. Yeah. Because even with her words, like in the beginning, she was fighting the party, especially in those first 2 years. Like, she was fighting against Nancy Pelosi, and now it just kind of feels like she's working in partnership. Like, she's trying to be pragmatic. Like, kind of like Andrew said, I mean, your strategy isn't wrong. Like, try and change the party from within. But just from what I've witnessed with this girl, the party's changing her, not the other way around. And I think it's just become more obvious because the things that she ran on, she doesn't even speak about anymore. And her performance of the DNC was kind of a turning point in my head on her, because she wasn't up there demanding anything of the party. She was making excuses for the party, and that was
star-making turn, though. Crowd loved her.
Well, the crowd has always loved her. So it's like, I think it's not easy, as I think Andrew and I, and even you, Justin, as you know, to not be a part of the party. Like, it would be really fun for all of us to just pick a party and lean in. Like, it is great to be a part of the groupthink and have a team, and it's more satisfying. And I think she's just leaning into that. I think that is the easier path. because battling this party, she was getting hammered in the press, and now she's a darling of the Democratic Party. I think it's a more pleasurable place to be, especially when you have to work with these assholes every day. And so I get why she's doing what she's doing, but I do think it is the easier path. And so, yeah, she got big cheers at the DNC, but the AOC bartender of 2018, she wouldn't have gotten those roars from the party. She was a threat to the party leadership, and she's not anymore. So that's why I think this is a sellout route as opposed to a pragmatist.
I'm okay with all of these here. Like, if it turns out I'm wrong and she's a sellout, we shouldn't like her. I'm also okay with that eventuality. These seem like nothing but good options to Heaton. I want to follow up on something. Jen, you said that the Muslim vote is split 50-50 between the Democratic Party and the Green Party.
Now, my source is Twitter, so, take that for what you will.
I want to drill down then. Was it according to any poll, or was it just somebody on Twitter that was just feeling that out? Because that would be significant in a swing state like Michigan if the Arab population, 50% of them didn't vote Democrat. I mean, that is a potential thing, but I just hadn't seen any of those polls.
I didn't write down exactly what the sources were, but this is I've seen it enough from, I think it might have even been Jill Stein's own Twitter, but it's been a source of conversation. Justin, do you know anything about this, exactly where that's coming from?
So, obviously, polling now, there's a lot of it that's coming out. I would agree with Andrew that the place where you should probably watch it most closely is Michigan. The only insight that I can offer on this, and we did an interview with a progressive organizer and campaigner, Annette Shanker-Osario on PX3 a couple months ago, but this is during when Biden was still at the top of the ticket. Her point to me was that it's not even that that they weren't excited to vote. It's that, especially in Michigan, those were often Muslim Americans were often your most enthusiastic volunteers. Yeah. They were very big parts of the backbone of the state party democratically. And if they're tapping out, if they don't want a piece of it, then you do have other problems. Now, maybe some of that has been mitigated by the wave of joy that has come across the Democratic Party. Enthusiasm is certainly much higher than it was before. You've seen some gaudy numbers in terms of volunteer hours pledged. I have no idea if those are real. I think at this point in the season, I am a little scant on any kind of numbers that come out of the campaigns, any metrics like that. But still, that's where you would worry. You'd worry in Michigan, and you would worry about people who are turning out your vote, not even just saying that they are going to vote one way or another. And to that point, I also wonder for the Democrats specifically whether or not there's anything that can change with that particular issue, Gaza. Because I feel like we've kind of come so far down the road. We're going to have the anniversary of October 7th that started everything coming up sooner than anybody wants to think, at which point, even if there's a ceasefire, a spoiler alert, it's the Middle East. No one's going to be happy about a ceasefire. It's just going to end a certain level of hostilities. It's not like in the history of that region, there's a ceasefire and everyone's like, wow, what a win-win-win. We are all really excited with what happened. So I don't know. I think that this is just an issue that the Democrats are going to have to kind of own in the way that it is. The only question is whether or not it's so toxic that it drives off enough people in Michigan. And if Jill Stein is out there saying, hey, you want a home? Do you want a home for your protest vote? I will be here.
That's effective running as a third party. I think one of the things that the Libertarian Party and the Green Party struggle with, and I appreciate the struggle that they're doing, is they're trying to operate as minor parties. They're trying to operate as parties that have a wide panoply of policy options that they're trying to get done across a range of issues, which is admirable. And I wish we lived in a multi-party democracy for many reasons. So I wish them luck in that regard. But the problem is if you're not getting actual seats in Congress, if you're not actually getting the policy-making mechanisms to have a seat at the table, then that kind of just falls to the background. Whereas if you have a lead issue as a third party, like if the Green Party ran on we will quit funding Israel or something like that, they had a very specific wedge issue that they could do, then that does exercise pressure. At that point, the Democratic Party either has to take it into account in order to quit hemorrhaging Muslims in those swing states to them or whoever's sympathetic and actually change their position. So that might wind up being a thing.
Well, that's precisely what they're doing. Jill Stein is pulling no punches when she says that her policy is an arms embargo and immediately. So she is reaching out to people and saying, if this is a big issue for you, and Jill Stein is Jewish, by the way. She's saying, if this is an issue for you, you do have a home here. And I know this is anecdotal, but I interviewed one of the uncommitted delegates. Her name was Asma Muhammad. She was wearing the headscarf, so I will assume that she's a Muslim. And it was an audio interview, and I do kind of wish it was video because her demeanor, I mean, granted, she had just slept outside all night, so she was tired, but she just looked so sad. And what she was telling me was that I've been a Democrat. I have knocked on doors. I've given my life, my work, my love to this party. And so to be treated like this, she's not alone in the way that she was shunned at the Democratic Party by not having a speaker. And even though those were delegates, that's going to get out. Like, they're going to go back to their hometowns in those meetings, and those discussions are going to be had. And if that feeling that I felt from her that day is being felt at large in the Muslim community, and if the lack of the Democrats even allowing them to speak, I think it was such an easy layup for them to allow 5 minutes on that stage, and the fact that they wouldn't even do that. I'm wondering if there's a lot more Asmas out there that are feeling that way, that are just going to be like, I can't vote for this. You're not even listening to me. So,
but to your point that you made on PX3 yesterday, the backstop that the Democrats always have, and even Kamala Harris said it the first time that she was heckled on stage, was, hey, keep talking like that if you want Trump to win.
Yeah.
So the backstop is sure, but Trump.
True. But this is also why I like the Greens aiming higher. You know, like, they might be, like, the people might hold their nose and vote for Kamala in 2024, but in 2028, when Trump is either gone or termed out or dead, I mean, he's old, who knows? I just don't think he's going to be on the ballot in 2028. If there's a saner, less Trumpy Republican on the ballot, I think people might remember the feeling that they have right now. I think this is such a big deal for people, and the Greens sticking to their principles. I do think they're going to be peeling people away from the Democratic Party as our politics calm down, because they have to at some point. I think the Greens aiming larger and just trying to stay on the ballot year after year after year, I like the strategy of it, because they haven't changed their positions at all. And the Democratic Party keeps moving further and further right, further and further towards the Republicans. And the way they're holding all of us hostage, saying it's either Trump or us, we're going to be all things for all people and stand for actually nothing. People who actually stand for things like environmental justice and not genociding people, the Greens are offering a home, and the Democrats aren't. And I think long term, I don't think this will be forgotten.
If you buy the idea, but the other guy, then that's all that ever needs to happen. Like,
this election, yeah.
No, every election they made Mitt Romney into Mr. Burns. You know, like this is always, and also you can't say that Donald Trump is the reason why the politics are crazy when the Democrats have fed off this. Donald Trump has been the biggest boon to the Democratic Party, money-wise and electorally, that we've seen in my lifetime. They don't really have to have policies. They just point across the aisle and say, this guy's terrible. And even in areas where he would theoretically be moderating compared to another Republican candidate, it doesn't matter, because they can demonize, they can say that Donald Trump is the worst person ever. And as long as people buy, yeah, you might be upset with us, but Trump, it doesn't matter what the name is. The name can change.
There's just, we've heard it so many times now. You know, George W. Bush was the worst thing ever, which I actually believe to be true. But like you said, Mitt Romney was the worst thing ever.
This is the most important election of our lives, just like last one and the one before and the one that follows.
Yeah.
And your little pet issue is so important, and we hear what you're saying. We hear what you're saying, but this time, you really need to vote with us this time. And then once we get in, and we have a universal, unstoppable majority in both houses forever, then we will take care of your issue.
Yeah, you can
I'm deeply
you can only
sympathetic.
cry wolf like that so many times over so many decades before we get tired of it. And I think
Only
a lot of us are at that
every
point.
presidential election of my lifetime. I swear to God, one more lifetime, and I'm gonna start thinking about stepping another way.
Exactly.
I don't like the two-party system. I share all of your umbrage. Yeah. That being said, though, I'm looking at it where I've gone to all these libertarian events over the last 10 years, and then I started hanging out with the new liberals that are in the Democratic Party, and the new liberals that have gone mainstream are having symposiums with governors and mayors, with state legislators. They're getting legislation passed. I don't feel that the libertarians do the same thing. And when I think of the libertarian that's probably done the most to affect American policy or push the Overton window in any direction, I think it's probably Ron Paul, who ran as a Republican. So I don't like it, but I think that practically speaking, I see most of the evidence saying that it works better to work within the parties than without. I hate them. I want to change it for all sorts of reasons, but
Yeah.
I see
You
the
can
point.
do both. That's why Jill Stein serves a purpose, and so does AOC. That's the thing. If we actually get clean energy because they're both working in concert, sounds great. But that's why it's also some friendly fire that AOC pulled, because they generally believe in the same thing. She could have just not answered the question, and that would have worked too, because they really do want the same things big picture wise. So it was just completely unnecessary.
Except that's her job. Her job now is to find the left side of the flank and bring them into the party.
'Cause she's
Just
a fucking party sellout, yeah.
shepherd these wayward sheep. Just come on in. Come on in. We're not going back, sheep. We're not going back.
This is what selling out looks like.
Patreon.com/We're Not Wrong is where you need to go if you would like to support this program. Thank you to everybody. We had a record high month this month, and it is very, very important because Heaton's flights to Europe are not free, and we need to make sure that he stays in bow ties for his dog Wallace.
I have a beautiful new daughter who is a shit and milk factory. I can't remember. She's so much milk. My daughter is producing. She just spews it out all the time. And it's so important to give us money to help my daughter so that I can eventually rebuild the karaoke room that I lost to her.
Heaton's going to stage a sit-in in her nursery just to say we need to reverse. We need an immediate suspension of supplies into Bella's room, and we need to restore what it was initially, the true state of it, the karaoke room. On this episode's this Patreon episode, which is exclusive to those who support us, we're going to be asking, I think, an actual serious question. Does the American government have a Chinese spy problem? For the third time in 3 years, we have had the discovery of a Chinese spy that has been in fairly high levels of government, this time as an aide to not one but two New York governors. We will discuss that a little bit, or for anyone who is a patron. They will get that episode as they do each and every week. The pay TV industry experienced a less severe decline in the second quarter of 2024, losing 1.6 million subscribers compared to greater losses in previous years. While it's still significant, the reduction is slightly better than the 1.7 and 1.8 million subscriber loss in the same quarter of 2023 and 2022, respectively. Analysts note that the industry does continue to shrink with no signs of stabilizing. Now, I know, Jen's already saying in her head, another the media is dying story, Justin. Why do I have to talk about this? Here's the reason why. Because it's not just cable. Digital pay TV services like YouTube TV and Hulu Live, once thought to be a stabilizing force for these channels, are also not meeting the losses. More specifically, they are subject to subscriber seasonality more so than cable used to be. So you are getting people who are, because it's so easy to subscribe and cancel, you can subscribe just in time, let's say, for the NFL season, because YouTube TV has NFL Sunday Ticket. And then when that's done, you just cancel it and you then come back later, which is eating into profits. This also comes as a new sports service that was going to be bundled together by a lot of the cable powers is in limbo because of a lawsuit that, if it goes forward, could totally ruin the bundling system that has run cable forever. That is specifically that if you want to pick up ESPN, you then also need to pick up all the other 7 ESPNs and 4 other Disney networks that they would like to have on that slate. That, many believe, could lead to the total collapse of the pay TV model. Mr. Andrew Heaton, refugee of pay TV, is the future of paid live programming on demand?
Yes. This to me is just more canaries in the coal mine. I think that the model for cable television is not a good one long term. It is built on this whole bundling model. It's also built on a system that really appeals to people that are not digital natives and are not internet natives. So I worked on cable television, and I'm not entirely sure. Granted, my show's now gone, but when it was still around for like 5 years after I left, I didn't know how to watch it because I didn't have a cable television subscription, and I wasn't going to go in and figure out how to do it online. So I think that there was already a problem there. And forgive me if I've mentioned this anecdote on the program before, but it's directly pertinent to what we're discussing. Right when I started working for Fox Business, like before we started shooting, we were doing a couple of weeks of test taping, pre-taping, that kind of thing, just to get our sea legs down. And this was on the Independence, the first show I was on. I'm in the control room like day 4, and I'm just trying to make friends. And I happen to be seated next to a vice president who'd been there from the beginning, or very close to the beginning, like came into the 90s. And I don't think he was an ideologue. I think he was a TV guy that just wound up there. And I, making conversation, went, hey, so you've been here since like 92 or whenever. Like, I bet things have really changed since you first started. That was my kickoff question. And he just gets really serious and goes, if they ever unbundle cable, we're fucked. That, out of nowhere, that's what he said. Unbidden. And the reason for that is that the whole model is, look, you may not want Fox Business, or you may not want the Tennis Channel, but you do want ESPN. Or maybe you want MSNBC, and you don't want Disney or whatever. Well, we're going to make you buy all of them collectively. And as that model starts to defray, and if anybody bolts from that model, which I think is already basically happening with the online services like Hulu and Peacock and things like that, where you get siloed into these massive amount of intellectual properties that are all over there, that model's breaking down. And I don't think it's going to persist. Fox Business is putting, or Fox News, I don't know, News Corp is putting a lot of financial effort into trying to build those rafts for themselves, those lifeboats. I don't know if that's how they would describe it. I doubt it. But they're definitely sinking resources into right now trying to create an online presence for when I think the ship goes down. I don't know about MSNBC and the other ones, but I do think the ship will go down, and I won't be too sad when it happens. Not because I don't have friends that work in that industry, but because I don't think cable television news analysis really lends itself to substance or nuance. The commercial breaks, the structure of it is one that doesn't allow us to have conversations like we're having here today. So I would prefer that for important, substantive things, we go in another direction. And I'm kind of looking forward to when the whole model collapses.
Which is funny because cable doesn't make their money on ads. The ads are almost incidental. They are a secondary resource. They make their money on carriage fees. Jen?
So this goes beyond news because for me personally, I do have YouTube TV. I get angry at the bill every month because it's like $100 when really all I'm looking for, like if I could have exactly what I want, I would have Red Zone to watch NFL games. Mm-hmm. I would have 2 news stations. I would want 1 local news and BBC, and I would have the Weather Channel. Other than that, I'm good. I don't need anything live. And so, and even for the Olympics, like I got Peacock for $8 for 1 month, and like that's how I watched the Olympics, and it was perfectly fine with me.
And it was great. They did an amazing job.
Yeah. And actually, Al Jazeera English has kind of already got this figured out, because if you have a Roku, you can download their app, And I can see pretty much all of their segments on demand anytime I want to. And I don't actually need to have a subscription, but I think they air like an ad or two in those on-demand segments. And then anything live, I can just go to their Twitter page and you just press it and you watch it. So somehow they're staying afloat and we're able to see them. But I think what this is going to really hit is the entertainment industry. Because there are, and I hate this, I have friends that I love who are actresses and actors and directors and producers, and I don't want this to happen. But there are a lot of TV shows and movies being made, and we're not watching them. No one gives a shit about them. I think we have too much content being made for too few eyeballs, and I think that's what's really going to get destroyed. Because in those bundles, you get Disney, and that's how you get your ESPN, but you're also getting all of their entertainment channels that you're not asking for and you never ever watch. And that's true with all the different channels. So it's like for the people that love Bravo, they just want to watch Bravo. They don't want the other 75 that come with that package. But I think it's the entertainment industry, not necessarily news, because there are certain things you can only watch live to have them relevant. News is one of them. News, sports, awards shows, and weather. That's really all I can think of. Everything else can be done on demand. And if your content isn't good enough, bye.
Hey, Jen.
Sorry.
Did I ever tell you that I wrote a pilot for a sitcom for the Weather Channel? Have we talked about this?
No.
Okay, so, oh my God, this is embarrassing in multiple levels. I was at improv camp in my 30s. And one of the guys that was there was a producer, and he was like, "You're really funny." And I was like, "Guilty as charged." And he went, would you be, I've got this production company, and we're looking to write some sitcoms. Would you be interested in writing a sitcom script? And I was like, "Yes, I'd love to. Like, I've never worked on a sitcom, and I've never written a spec script for a sitcom, but I would love to have that skill set." So we met up, and he's like, "So here's what I'm thinking. We pitch a sitcom to the Weather Channel." I was like, "You are aware the Weather Channel does not have sitcoms, correct? Like you're." And he's like, "That's why it'll work, because we're not competing with anybody. We're gonna get in." And he had kind of an argument too, because he was like, "Why would anybody need the Weather Channel when they can just look at their phone? Like they gotta start having content."
They're gonna need to do stuff. By the way, I knew somebody that was on a reality show on the Weather Channel, so
They
they
have
did
quite
wind
a
up
few
doing
reality shows.
Yeah.
What? Okay, so this
Ice
wasn't as
Road
dumb as I
Truckers.
thought. So we worked on a pilot called The Cold Front, about a plucky group of local weather affiliates and the hijinks that they get into. I wrote that. The reason that I bring it all up is that it was fascinating looking at how the old television model works, because one of the guys that I was collaborating with on that project was an employee at CBS, and he was telling me that the old model that he had, I guess, come at the very end of, although he's about my age, the old model that he'd come in at the very end of was the make content palatable enough that people don't change the channel model. Like if you go back to like basic cable, or more specifically to airwave television, where you're just getting it by virtue of having a television, the old model was, we know that there are only 4 channels that are going to be showing sitcoms at prime time: ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox. So we only have 4 competitors. And that means that you're going to watch one of us. Most likely America's going to sit down and watch one of us while they're eating their dinner on a Thursday night. So our goal is to be just good enough that you don't change the channel. Because if we make the programming too clever, we're going to alienate people. If we make it too smart, we're going to have people that don't get the joke. So we don't want to do that. We're going to intentionally make it broad and appeal to the median, and we're going to make it a little bit less fun and awesome as a result. But all we're trying to do is, when you come in on Home Improvement, which is a banger, you stick around for the next 3 things. And that model, too, I think, has kind of collapsed both in cable television news and in entertainment to a great extent. Because now we have a ton of different a ton of different outlets that we can look at. We can go niche. There is more competition, and so that just like kind of playing defense captive eyeball model no longer works.
Yeah, and like primetime used to be a thing, and it's funny because last night my mom arrived here. She's visiting from California, and I've lived in Austin now on and off for over a year and a half, and I've had live TV the entire time. And so she asked me, "Is primetime here at 7 or at 8 o'clock?" And neither Joe and I knew. It's so irrelevant now.
Yeah.
By the way, is it 7 or 8 o'clock? I still don't.
Seven. Yeah,
It
we
is
are on
7.
we are on East Coast time. They do not delay. That is why they say like 7 Central.
Because we guessed 8, so we didn't. Yeah, we have no
No,
idea.
you screwed up.
Plus,
You screwed
in
up.
the-
You
in the
lied to
age
your
of-
mom, and you should be sad about it.
I did.
In the age of streaming on demand, it doesn't matter, right? Like, so it does
Yeah.
if you're watching the news, it does if you're watching live breaking footage, but like the last time that I actually watched a show as it dropped might have been the finale of Game of Thrones. I'm trying to think of when I
That's
actually
HBO.
like timed my schedule to sit down for a show because I don't need to. Like,
And even then for us, which we watched in the Vatican of all places, you're just waiting for them to hit upload on the streaming service. Like it had been a long time since we were watching all the ads leading up to it. All right, real quick, I'm going to steal a bit from another podcast. Jen, you mentioned that there was too many television shows that are being made. Before the writer's strike and the actor's strike, there were a record number of television shows that were made for the streaming services and traditional linear television. 700 plus. 700 shows made just in that last year before the strike. So yes, there was too many, and they are making less now. But I'm going to give you guys a pitch, and you have to guess whether or not it was a real show or one that I am just making up out of whole cloth.
nice.
All right?
All right.
Okay.
A serious dramedy as a prequel to Grease, the classic musical about the origin of the Pink Ladies. Real or fake?
I'd say real.
Yeah, I'm going to go with real because you immediately had that. You didn't even have to think about it. Although you're borrowing all the references from this other show, right?
Well, no, I would be making up because I'm really
then in that
fucking
case,
clever.
I think it's real. I think you rattled that off so quickly with that unshakable dad confidence you now have. So
I think it's real because it appeals to boomers.
So
It's all
it
different.
was real. It was on Paramount Plus, and it was not renewed for a second season. Yeah, no, that was one of the 700 that happened that final year before everything went out. Now, Jen, to your point, though, to say that this is going to affect mostly the entertainment side, let's remember, I think it's only News Corp that now is untethered from a much larger entertainment complex. I think Fox News Corp is just news now. Other than that, ABC is Disney, CNN is HBO Max, and now Discovery as well. MSNBC is NBC, which is I forget, Viacom, I guess, is the parent company.
Viacom is CBS. And
Oh,
then
Viacom, CBS, Comcast. The Comcast is NBC. They all are very tied in to, I mean, some of these cable itself, like Comcast, but
Well,
there's
Comcast
the-
has NBC, Universal, like they
Yeah.
have movies, and yeah, it's a big conglomerate.
huge conglomerate. So it's like news is not going to be unaffected by this. The question becomes, all right, let's say this is dying. Hulu Live, not going to happen. And YouTube, I have YouTube Live. It's good. I really like it for my quad. I can watch 4 channels at once, 4 news channels at once, and drive myself crazy like Clockwork Orange. But it is expensive.
Yeah.
And it's not much cheaper than, it's just basically a better cable product. I'm not saving any money, and
What
I
is-
can get.
So I think I have YouTube Premium where I don't get ads, but I don't think we're describing the same thing.
No, this is Google's dumb thing where they just like to name 5 different services the same thing. YouTube Premium is you not getting ads when you go to youtube.com.
Okay.
YouTube TV is essentially cable, but delivered to you over the internet.
Yeah.
It's got a good DVR system. It's got multi-view, so it's a good product, but it's not a significantly cheaper one in any way.
But it's better than cable in that if I want
Yeah.
to watch something live at like a coffee shop, I can just bring my computer and just
Yeah.
watch the football game or the news or the weather or whatever the hell I'm watching. And I've done that where cable, you have to be home. It's connected to your television and your television alone. So even that product is worse than what YouTube is offering, but the prices are pretty much the same.
And again, people aren't subscribing in the same way. The thought was, okay, fine, we'll build a better mousetrap. YouTube will come in here, and that also gives them the ability to reset some of the clock on the contracts, which is another. Cable was always a ticking time bomb because ESPN was the first channel to negotiate with cable carriers and say, no, you pay us money. We are not paying you money. You pay us money. And since then, every negotiation from that first one back in the 70s has been, now we get a raise. Now we get a raise. Now we get a raise and you pick up more channels. Now we get a raise and you pick up more channels. And now we got bought by ABC. So now you have to take the Disney Channel and the 4 other Disney channels that come along with it. And now you have to take, and now you have to take, and now you have to take. Right now, DirecTV is in a pretty nasty carriage dispute with Disney, with ESPN. And that is leading right into football season where they know people are going to be the most pissed if things are not available for them, as well as ABC, which carries football as well for Monday Night Football. So this is going to be, it's going to be ugly. And I think we might be at a real breaking point where the reverberations for it go a lot further than just LOL, cable's dead. I think it's going to be big, deep wounds into huge companies like Discovery Max and NBC Universal et al.
Yeah, it's a long time coming. I mean, like you said, there used to be a Disney Channel. We don't need 10 of them. So I think cutting some of this bloat is probably inevitable and probably a good thing as well. Because I would rather have kind of not go all the way back to only having 3 channels, but I would rather have fewer options but have those be higher quality than go on YouTube TV now and scroll every channel and there's nothing worth watching. It's still all reruns from the 1990s. Like, it's Constant Law and Order and Friends, and like, it's not even new shit. I don't understand.
No, that's the funny thing is that the explosive sector of this is something called FAST, free ad-supported television. So you have your Tubies, your Freebies, stuff like that, where you've got a million different channels, and some of them are literally just that. It's just American Gladiators. It's the American Gladiators channel. American Gladiators is playing all the time. Unskippable ads. It's free, but you get unskippable ads, and they will throw some chum in there. Just random nonsense. But they can make it up on volume because they are running stuff constantly.
Wait. Okay, so now I'm kind of liking this. So if I got a television again, I could have like a Star Trek channel, a Frasier channel, and like some other thing. Just whenever I'm like, I wonder what's on Star Trek right now. Just it would always be Star Trek, and I wouldn't have to think about what episode. I wouldn't have to think about what season. It'd just be Star Trek. I kind of like that.
I do too.
That is available for you right now.
I'm going to go all sci-fi for you guys on a moment. I don't think that just the economic model is going to change on this due to the current technology. I think AI is going to really profoundly alter this over the next few years. I don't know how long it'll take, let's say 5-10 years, but I think we'll get to the point where you're able to customize what you're watching. And you could say, like, I'd like to see a sitcom that has Cary Grant and Patrick Stewart where they're fighting chimps or something. And it'll just, here you go, spit out a 23-minute sitcom for you. And that'll put more pressure on stuff.
That sounds awful.
Carrie, why did you let the chimps in again? We're not wrong pod at gmail.com. Baby on board. We're not wrong pod at gmail.com. That's where you email the show. What the hell happened when I was gone, writes? I physically shivered when you mentioned putting ketchup on a taco. That's the most horrible combination I can think of. What the hell happened?
Question for you. Is a hot dog in a bun a form of a taco? Is it a sandwich?
No.
What makes a taco?
You sound like the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. That's a callback to last month.
No, a taco is a flatbread that you can either fry or not. So it's either crispy or not.
What if I put a hot dog in a pancake?
I've had a lettuce taco.
You want to know what? I actually, when we were in the hospital, there was a taco deli by us. And so I would go and get breakfast for Ashley and I each morning. And one time I forgot my phone. And so I was just forced to read things on the wall like a fucking moron. And one of them was an old New York Times article about breakfast tacos in Austin and how Austin had become a national hub for breakfast tacos.
Rightly
And
so.
specifically the idea that they are not Mexican, yet they are often run by Mexican families that run the most famous places that serve them. And at that time, there was a lot more adventuring of what was in a breakfast taco, including one stand, and this is maybe 10, 12 years ago that this article was written, that did Jimmy Dean sausage in a breakfast taco. And I was like, where the fuck is that? I need some outside the box breakfast tacos.
Yeah.
Nice.
I would-
Well done, Austin. Well done, America. America does this all the time where we take a pretty good idea from another country and then we add a lot of fat and make it fucking awesome. Check out pizza,
Exactly.
for example. Pizza, knocking it out of the park. American Chinese food, better than Chinese food. I've been over there twice. I prefer ours.
100%. Primal Scream writes, and I'm going to quote, this is something that he or she quoted Heaton last week. When I talk about folks over here in Europe, or Europe and Britain, since I'm not technically in Europe in the moment, they write, on what continent is Edinburgh located? Fucking Asia? When I heard Andrew say this, I literally screamed so hard you could probably hear it from a 500-meter radius. No, I will not convert that to U.S. customary units. This is not a joke. This literally happened. Go look up Europe on Wikipedia. Everybody recognizes the U.K. as a European country. Heaton, answer for yourself.
I'll answer for him. Brexit. Brexit. When I think of Europe, I no longer think of the UK. So it's like, yeah, it might be on the right continent, but if you're not talking about land masses and are instead talking about where you can get in with
Government?
visas, yeah, like the UK and Europe are.
Oh, what a
separate things.
statist. What a statist you are. We can't understand things as continents. We have to go by the state lines that are drawn.
Yes, who goes by continent? Like when you go to Russia, do you say you're
Everybody
going
with
to
a
Asia?
globe. Everybody with a globe does it.
No, if you're going to Russia, you say I'm going to Russia. You don't say I'm going to Asia.
Okay, I will back you up on this, and this has happened a lot more with Kamala at the top of the ticket. The idea of Indians being South Asians,
Yeah, shut
like,
up.
get out of here. Indians are Indians, and Indians deserve to be Indians. They're the largest country outside of China. They're the largest democracy for sure. Come on. They have nothing to do with somebody from the Philippines or Thailand or Japan. Like this AAPI thing is just too broad a bucket, in my opinion.
Exactly. And like if you're saying you're going to America, but then you go to Canada or Mexico, inaccurate, even though they are in North America.
That's
So-
a little different.
Is it
That's
though?
different.
Compared
Yes.
to the UK and Europe, like I think it's the same thing. If you say
No,
you're
but
going to
look,
the UK, you're not going to Europe.
It was only a few months ago that the big tournament, the soccer tournament that happens each year, is called the Euros. That's where all the national soccer teams from Europe play each other. Guess who made the finals? England. England made the finals. So yes, they're a part of the Euros.
Heaton, solve this now that you're back.
I am so sorry. Internet, blah, 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 blah. Have you all been fighting about this? Should I weigh in?
Yes, go. We're filling.
Okay, great. Thank you. Hey, listener. Wait, did they say they were wanting to convert it into U.S. something or other, so they're not Americans? Is that right?
No, yeah, they are not Americans. They're European.
Okay. Well, it doesn't sound like they're British. And I say that because I've been coming over here for 15, 20 years now, and Britons never refer to themselves as European. Even when they were part of the European Union, they would say, I'm going to Europe next week. In the British mind, Britain is halfway in the Atlantic between America and Europe. That's how they think of it. They think of it as this free-floating, independent continent that is on near-ish to Europe. But that's definitely how British people talk about it. And I am, as somebody who's staying in the United Kingdom right now, falling into their habit of it. I will also note they voted on whether or not they wanted to be in Europe, and they decided that they didn't want to be in Europe. So colloquially and legally, they are not European. And I spend a lot more time talking to British people than I do tectonic plate specialists, so I'm going to continue speaking the way I am.
Boom. Click It or Ticket writes, regulations are like seatbelts. The same seatbelt that stops you from being ejected during a crash can trap you in a car fire. Regulations aren't good or bad. It is all contextual and complicated.
Amen.
Unmitigated Slander writes, Jen and Heaton were on their best behavior for an economics question. I'm wondering if they were extra civil with one another because Justin isn't there to mediate or because Will doesn't actively throw gasoline on them.
It's the latter. Justin is an instigator. He
No,
gets
me?
off on it. Will does
Me?
not. Yeah.
Damn, you're going to let Jen say that shit about you, Heaton?
Yeah, I know, right? Jen, fuck you. When we do this, Justin will text things like, Jen looked at you funny. And then he'll text Jen things like, Heaton said something misogynistic while you were in the bathroom. Like, he does that all the time. He's always stirring shit up. And it's true, but he's not supposed to report on me, tattle on me about that misogynist thing I said.
Yeah, the needler in chief.
I do it for the people. It makes for a better show. On RFK, merch ideas writes, the fact that RFK doesn't have a worm, bear, whale t-shirt a month ago is a testament to his cowardice and inexperience.
I would buy that. It's hilarious.
You want to know what's funny?
Now? Is that a joke or does he?
I don't know. He should have.
He should just make some money.
RFK stories are almost indistinguishable from Teddy Roosevelt stories. Like when people talk about Teddy Roosevelt, they're like, oh, what a big adventurous man. He did these crazy cool things and he was a hunter. Like if you were to say, oh, Teddy Roosevelt, he went down to a beach and he brought his daughter and they found a beached whale, but he really wanted the whale skull. So he hacked it off by hand and then dragged it back so we could have a whale skull. You'd be like, man, Teddy Roosevelt is awesome. RFK does it and Roseanne looks weird at him in a video. We're like, oh, how gross and disgusting. On Telegram sucks writes, I really don't understand the link to Telegram and free speech. Here's my list. It's a company based in UAE, a country with no commitment to freedom of speech. Telegram has no end-to-end encryption, meaning Telegram can look at your messages all day long or pass them off to whomever they want. Pavel Durov was also a founder of VT, a shitty Russian version of Facebook, well known for canoodling with the Russian government. The Kremlin had to make a statement about Telegram being trustworthy and secure after he was arrested. That says a lot. It's the favorite platform of ransomware gangs in Russia. The CSAM argument is literally because they take zero content moderation stances, even though searching through known C-spam is trivial because their platform is not end-to-end encrypted.
Yeah, I think my issue is wanting to meddle in private platforms in general. So I'm less concerned with whether this particular platform is run by an upstanding, honest person with really good software in a country that's really good. It's more of, to me, it's kind of like freedom of speech. Like it's freedom of speech is going to have a broad net of people who are challenging the status quo for good reasons, people that are assholes, and people selling Hustler magazine. And so, sure, there might be all of these problems with it, but it doesn't really change my position on whether government should be putting pressure on these platforms to buckle and do what the government wants.
Jen?
I'm with him.
These arguments are not there to defend the great actors. They're there to defend the sketchy actors.
Yeah.
Telegram's a sketchy actor. There's none of this is untrue. This is all absolutely true. The only difference that I would say is, yes, Telegram is sketchy. Yes, we don't exactly know how much they do or do not have a backdoor for any government, up to and including the Russian government. It seems as if France doesn't have the backdoor that they want because they brought these charges. We have heard interviews saying that the American government has requested that certain elements of their architecture be updated with open source technologies that America knows how to hack so they can get into things without cooperating on a more formal basis. But there's also this other element of the internet becoming mainstream culture, the internet taking over for things like linear pay television and these companies that were very easily interactable with the government in the past. And now the remedies for them, in my opinion, we need to be giving up freedom of internet communication very warily, very, very warily, because if we give up the backbones of them, you never get them back. It's just, you have to start a new one essentially, and you need to, move things forward. So I am fine being as skeptical as possible with Pavel Durov, even though you can very easily make the argument for me that they are probably derelict in their duties for things like chasing down child predators or, drug gangs or whatever. I will say this. The only reason why I'm on Telegram is for our British cult. The British cult's main group chat is on Telegram. So, that's the only reason why that's there on my phone.
I do.
We're not wrong.
For that, and because I sell heroin as a side thing. Good quality heroin, I might add, made by hardworking American heroin mongers.
I would love to see you just on the Silk Road hawking your wares. Top quality heroin here.
On a long day where you've been working hard, isn't it great to kick back and have a little bit of heroin before you go to sleep? Why, Uncle Andy's heroin is black tar to its core. Just like Uncle Brad used to make. Yeah, something like that. I'll work on it.
No. It's a modern ad, so it'd have to be two best friends decided that they were going to revolutionize the heroin industry. So they bought a poppy field in Afghanistan to make the purest heroin without all the markups.
Heroin, but is it climate neutral? Well, good news. This is.
We're Not Wrong is a production of Dog and Pony Show Audio. Our editor is that young slut, Will Saddleberg. On PX3 this week, not only do we have Jen Briney talking about the DNC, an expanded conversation from what happened last week, but also I break down the race now that we are past Labor Day. Everything is now very, very real and moving very, very fast. And then on Friday's edition, it usually is not this late in the season that I'm breaking down fresh debate tape, but I'm going to be going back and watching Kamala Harris's debates back from California to the primaries in 2019, and then, of course, the 2020 debate with Mike Pence. So we will be setting up for the big debate, which is next week, next Tuesday.
That's going because Trump was making noises about it last week, but I assume that's just standard Trump tactics of pulling out.
No, they both are. Like, here's the problem, is that we used to have the much maligned Commission on Presidential Debates that everybody fucking hated. Throw them in the river. They're terrible. Here's what they did. They dealt with this shit so we didn't have to, and they weren't negotiating in public. They were just annoying this one asshole cell phone instead of all of the world. And so the Harris campaign didn't want other debates. So they were like, we're keeping the debates that you agreed to with Biden. And then the Trump campaign was like, fine, if you won't add other debates, then we'll just keep to the exact same rules that we agreed with Biden. And then the Harris campaign was like, but we want the mics unmuted because we really, really want. Harris, during the 2020 debate, did this thing constantly where she would just say to Mike Pence, I'm speaking. And so I think they really want her to be able to do that again. And also Trump comes off like a dickhead when he can try to talk over people. So they were fighting back and forth. ABC came out and said,
Trump might want to have the mute button on in order to stop him.
The Trump campaign is saying we are changing. Yeah, we are not changing the agreement. If you won't add more debates, if you want to add more debates, we can have a conversation about renegotiating things. But if you don't want to add more debates, then we're keeping the exact rules that we had before. Because by the way, when we had the exact rules that we had before, we ended that motherfucker's career. So let's keep the formula the way it is because it seemed to work pretty well for us before. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, ABC came out last week and said, the agreement is the agreement is the agreement. If one side doesn't want to renegotiate, then that's what it is. I think that's going to be what happens on Tuesday.
So we have this Tuesday debate. Is this the last one? What have they agreed to, or is there more than this?
This is, again, all of this is up in the air because the Kamala campaign came out and said, the debate over debates are over. We're doing this one. And then they said, also, mics are unmuted. It's like, well, then I guess the debate over debates aren't over. So I would suspect if it goes well for Trump, I wouldn't imagine the Trump campaign would want to do it. But then again, they've made noises to say, hey, we'll do one, but we want to do one in a fucking arena. We want to put 15,000 people. If you think you can book half of it, then awesome. Let's each put 7,000 people in an arena and let's do a debate there, which would be intolerable. It would be absolute, what a shit show. But Who knows? I
think they should
suspect this
have
will be
a
the last one.
box. If they had a boxing match between Trump and Kamala, who do you think would win?
Oh, Trump.
Oh, I think Kamala.
I don't know.
I think
He's
Trump
a
is old and
78-year-old
fat and
man,
can't move
isn't
very
he?
well.
Fucking height and weight, dude. That's how boxing works.
Okay.
Yeah, but she's quick and like I
Quick.
could see her being spry.
There's weight classes for a reason in combat sports.
I don't know. I think he's just too old and slow. I think she gets one hit on him and like the McDonald's in his arteries just takes him out. So
What? What is Kamala Harris's height?
I don't think she's well.
5'3".
He is kind of huge.
5'3" and a quarter inch.
You're just making that.
Yeah, I'm making it up. I have no idea.
5'4", according to the internet.
I was off
Oh,
by
she
a
has a little
quarter of an
peanut.
inch, real quick. I was real close.
Maybe she can just punch him straight, get him right in the balls, take him down there.
Donald Trump is listed at 6'3".
Yeah, he's a
Big
big
guy.
dude.
Big guy.
So he's got a foot on her.
Yeah, but again, old, fat, slow. I don't know. Wouldn't we like to see it anyway?
Do you think it would be good for the soul of the nation for Donald Trump to punch a woman right in the face and then deny her a job?
I mean, rhetorically, he does it all the time. So
It would be really funny if he got elected. The only way he could get elected president is by beating a woman.
like literally beating a woman.
Heaton, political orphanage.
I have on Scott Hodge talking about taxes. Wait, hold on. I promise it's fun. Stop. No, for real. It's a good conversation. I promise you it's the most entertaining conversation about taxes you will hear this year. It's a good show.
Good. Jen.
The last thing on my feed is I think it dropped after the last episode, so I did an episode about the DNC, and I think I talked about it last week, but it's a good one. Has on-the-ground reporting, interviews from members of Congress. So go check it out.
I'm very glad that
Congressional
you went.
dish.
I'm very glad that you went and did on the ground stuff. Expanded the purview of Congressional Dish a little bit.
I know. I do have to say, you force me to do things I don't want to do, and I love that about you. So thanks
I know.
for
I know.
making me do these things.
The only thing that I can't get you to do is read listener emails that I sent to you. Where you just send me, fuck you. Don't send this shit to me.
That email was more obnoxious than most. So
Oh my God, it was on the fucking light end. It was, that was a nice one. Anyway, that's it for
it's
us.
probably not wise of me to piss off all the gun lovers. Like I'm basically.
Well, you
asking
didn't
to
piss
get
him off.
shot.
You just, I take the fucking crossfire for the record. But yeah, no, the gun stuff. Look, after the election, when we're looking to fill time and space on stuff, maybe there's a everybody takes their medicine series where we have to take something that we really, really don't cotton to and listen to the most good faith arguments about it. But today is not that day.
Well, I mean, with that rant, I think what people need to understand is that when I argue for stuff like background checks, I'm meeting you so far away from the middle because what I would like to do is collect every gun in the universe and throw them into a volcano. So the fact that I'm even open to like, let's just check your background, like I think I'm already meeting you in the middle. So fuck your guns.
Okay.
Send
well,
emails
there
to
we go.
Justin.
Jesus. Right, this is the other problem is that you run your fucking mouth and then you won't even take the nice ones. I have to read all of them.
I know what I'm doing.
Oh, Jesus. You're the piss and shit factory. You're the email piss and shit factory. Oh, for Jennifer Briney and Andrew Heaton, I'm Justin Robert Young. We're not wrong.